Hi guys, welcome back to Chess the Matthew. So on this video, we'll tackle about an opening, which is the so-called Scotch Gambit, which start with the move e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, a takes d4, bishop c4, the Scotch Gambit, and bishop c5 for black. So here on this position, there is a tricky move for white that start with the move knight to g5 with two attackers to the f7, and with a threat that after knight f7 there is a fork on the queen and rook of black. So here after knight to g5, we will defend the f7 pawn with knight h6, and for example after this position, the white here will force to capture the f7 pawn to have a fork, and after for example knight takes f7, bishop takes f7, king takes f7, and here comes now the queen h5 for the white, in which it has a double attack to the king and the bishop on c5. So here on this position, if black plays the move king to f6, in which it actually give an upper hand for the white immediately after bishop to g5, in which it has a skewer attack to the king and black queen. So after king to e6 and bishop takes d8, winning the queen, and after rook takes d8, for example, here comes another queen takes c5 on this position. So again, the white here has a huge material advantage on this position. So this is actually the idea of knight g5 move for white, in which most of the common Scotch Gambit players want this trap to be in reality after knight takes f7, knight takes f7, bishop takes, king takes, queen h5, and the king f6 for black, in which it is actually a huge blunder on this position. Even though the black king here retreats, but still there is queen takes c5, and again this king can no longer castle on this position. So going back after e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, it takes d4, bishop c4, the Scotch Gambit, and the bishop c5 with knight g5, a tricky move for white. We actually try to troll the white here after knight h6 and allowing the exchanges on f7. For example, after this king takes f7 and after queen h5 check, a double attack to the black's king, because there is just a simple move that the black must have to know after g6, covering the check to the white's queen. Because after, for example, the move queen takes c5, winning back the piece, and even though it puts the position to radical equal, but the difference is that the black king here cannot castle on its position, but there's just a simple d5. The idea here is, for example, if the white capture that pawn, then there's just a rook to a8 check, and after king f1, here comes another sacrifice for black. It's all start with the move b6. The idea is to attack the queen on this position, and for example, after the white capture our knight on c6, but there is a mate in 4 after bishop a6 check. So the king must not have to play on this position to g1 because there is rook to e1 checkmate. So if for example, if the white cover the check but there's just an impassant, so the white here force again to cover a check with queen to c4, but still there is bishop takes c4 check, and they only move to g1, but there is a checkmate in 1 after rook a1 checkmate. So going back after, for example, on this position after rook a8, if the white here plays the move king to d1, but still there is a simple rook to d5, forcing this pawn to be captured by the queen or rook. And for example, after rook to e1, trying to have some exchanges to this active rook from this passive rook of white, but there's just a simple rook takes d5 attacking the queen, queen c4, and again after knight a5 chasing the queen, and for example after queen to e2, d3 attacking the queen. c takes d3, knight c6 intending to d4. And for example, if the white here tries to develop his pieces after a bishop to d2, bishop f5 pressurizing the d3, and after knight c3, here comes now the rook takes d3. And after the white plays rook to c1, here comes again the knight to d4, attacking the queen. And after, for example, king f1, a sacrifice move to d2, because after rook takes d2 check, king takes d2, there is a discover check with knight to e2. And after, for example, knight to d5 covering the check, but still there's just a capture. Queen takes d5 check, king takes e2, and queen d3 checkmate, because the queen cannot be captured because it was supported by the bishop on f5. So going back after e4, f5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, it takes d4, bishop c4, bishop c5, knight to g5, knight h6, knight takes, bishop takes, king takes, and queen h5 check. The black here must play the move this g6 to cover the check. And for example, after a capture on c5, here comes now the d5. Even though here the white tries to capture that pawn and trying to force the black to have a queen exchanges on this position after queen takes, pawn takes, but there's just a simple rook to a check, and after king d1 and a timely knight d4, again on this position it leads to just an equality for both sides. That's all. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to subscribe.